The consumer said based on the agent's suggestion. So this is where Compass agents will need to be very careful.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market data, industry trends, the clear cooperation war that is going on, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers Podcast. I'm Tom Toole, here with Byron Lazine. And Byron, I missed BAMFest. I was busy working. I heard it was incredible with the mystery guest, Alex Hormozi. Break it down a little bit for us here and tell everyone about the opportunity that's coming up in case you missed BAMFest like I did.
Well, I'd like to just thank everybody who did attend. Obviously, BAMX members and people who signed up are going to get the replay and all of that kind of stuff. But, it was a spectacular event. It was the best virtual event we've done. And so really thankful for everybody who was able to attend that experience. Thankful for everybody who put in, we had a whole bunch of entertainment. Lee and Eddie, Shane Bergman, and Derek Gregory. Probably the only 3 times some of those names will be mentioned on this pod. Love those guys, though. And they had some unbelievable videos. The speakers, Veronica Figueroa, who's, we both talk about Veronica. We've known Veronica for a while in the sense of what she's accomplished as a team leader perspective, and Jimmy Burgess, and then obviously Hormozi. We're going to, before the end of this pod, stay to the end of this, we're going to break down the most impactful moment of the Hormozi conversation. Obviously, Sharran was a part of it. But, it was, if you missed it and you didn't sign up, but you are a BAMX member, the replay's inside of BAMX. And, we do these virtual events. They're great. But the best way to get connected, and something I know you mentioned it last week, but I'd like to announce for anybody who missed that announcement, is a workshop with me, you, and Lisa. Lisa couldn't be on today's pod. But if you want to spend an entire day with us and then the morning of the next day at Lisa's HQ on how to manage and scale your business, check out the BAM workshop. We'll put the link down below if you're interested. BAMworkshop.live is the link. But we're doing this in May, so you get a chance to come to Lisa's HQ, spend the day with me, Tom, and Lisa, of course, on managing and scaling your business. And listen, there's nothing better than when the 3 of us get together. This is a small and intimate opportunity. We're not obviously taking everybody and all that kind of stuff. So hit the link down below. You get more information, and stay to the end of this pod when we break down what I thought was maybe the most impactful moment of the BAM Fest in terms of Hormozi's discussion and how you can use what he was talking about in your own business. So we'll break that down, but we got a little bit of industry news drama first.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about Hormozi. But first, we've got this Compass exclusive story that came out on LinkedIn, and it nearly cost the home seller $100,000, Byron. Not $10,000.
This is a consumer post.
Yeah, this is not some agent that had sour grapes because they lost a listing and they thought they could have sold the home for more. This is a consumer. So I'm going to give you some of the highlights here. It was Caitlin Bigelow, and she's actually like a pretty savvy business person from looking at her LinkedIn profile. She's in the marketing world. She's
not a real estate novice either, but she was a consumer in this scenario. She had hired a Compass agent.
So in her post, her and her husband, they listed this property and they had a magic number in mind when they sat down with their agent. The agent sat them down, told them there weren't any comps to support the price, and suggested listing their home on Compass Private Exclusive, which until the rule changes would allow them to list on the MLS and Zillow at a later date. 2 showings later, the buyer came in, offered the magic number, and Caitlin Bigelow was thrilled. But then she thought about it and said, if only 2 people saw it and we hit the magic number, what if 50 people saw it? I think that's a very reasonable assumption to make, and a question to ask yourself when you're dealing with your home. That's a lot of people's nest egg. It's their biggest financial decision that they make. And the lack of comps weren't the issue. Then these people, the Bigelows, they listed on the MLS, which meant the home was live on Zillow and other portals. 6 days later, a buyer offered $100,000 more than the magic number that the previous buyer had backed out of. And I mean, she went on and on here, had a post, and in the post it said, a free and open market is what allowed us to get top dollar and ultimately walk away with a much bigger win. So I'm all in favor of Zillow throwing its weight around And there's been all kinds of reactions here. James Dwiggins was the first one. I know he's been a big proponent of the one side of this debate. CEO of Next Homes. He said, "Thank you for sharing your story. This is literally what I'm trying to protect, the free and open market, as well as bringing attention to predatory practices that harm sellers." This goes on here. Rob Hahn, the notorious ROB, chimed in. Greatest nickname in real estate, by the way, notorious ROB. I mean, that's fantastic.
Shout out to Rob.
Yeah, and he said, "I'm curious. 6 days later, we had an offer $100,000 above our magic number. How do you know you couldn't have had an offer $200K above your magic number if only 6 days has passed?" And it just sparked a big debate here. And I want to get your reaction, Byron. I've got an anecdotal example I'm going to share here. What do you think? You're in this. I mean, this is an incredible story, and $100,000 is a lot of money. Anybody listening to this, if someone gave you an extra $100,000 right now, you're probably taking it. Is that fair to say?
$100,000 over the previous. Yeah, I think people think cash is king. And when you have $100,000 gap, most sellers, 99.99% don't care about cash or mortgage or certain terms. 100,000 kind of changes those terms and conditions and whatever else they were looking for, whether it was time frame. $100,000 in most price categories is going to be substantial enough to move the needle into that decision. And it certainly was very desirable for this seller. So this is a consumer that made this LinkedIn post. Almost became a $100,000 mistake for this seller. A couple things caught me off before I give you my full reaction. The realtor, and so the realtor said this, and it seemed as though the consumer kind of agreed with this type of thinking. The consumer being Caitlin Bigelow. You can find the article on nowbam.com. We'll link it down below, obviously, too, and it links out to the LinkedIn post. But the realtor said there's not a comp out there that supports this number. We need to set expectations appropriately. This was a heart-to-heart they had with their agent. But this was a San Francisco condo. I mean, like condos to me, and there's more than one condo in the city of San Francisco. I'm not a San Francisco expert, but like condos to me, they're easier to comp at times than single family homes. You can have more uniqueness with, the lot and the location and maybe what somebody's done to it. So I don't know, that caught me off a little bit, that there's a time and a place to have the conversation about aspirational pricing, as our buddy Sharran has titled it, where, you truly have this unique one-of-one property that, appraisers aren't going to be able to comp, or it's super, luxury, and there's maybe even a private component to it and all of this kind of stuff, where you do want to test aspirational pricing. But on a condo, it does, that just struck me a little bit. I don't know. What do you think about that before I move on? Like, the condos are usually easier to comp.
Well, and they're easier to comp. It's like a townhome, right? I mean, I think it's, we see in the suburbs, you probably see more of those. I would rate them similarly because some townhomes are deeded as condos. It's very straightforward. There's what floor is it on? How big is it? In downtown San Francisco, price per square foot's a big thing. I mean, there's a formula to get there. And, I find when there's not a comp, usually what you want to do is look for like, all right, this one's a little bigger, better, has some additional features. This one's maybe a little smaller, doesn't have the same features, and maybe try to build a range in and use like a back of the envelope approach, where you're finding homes that the subject's better than, homes that are better than the subject, and arrive at a number that way. So I tend to agree with you.
I don't know. That just kind of caught me off guard. But here's what I'll say. When Compass agents right now are sitting down at the listing table, like they did with this consumer in San Francisco, they're walking the sellers through a business model that right now, in terms of attracting seller interest and showing them that they have a framework for their listing, for Compass, the company. Okay. I'm not going to get into the consumer side of things. We'll take a look at James Dugan's comments here in a second, but for Compass, the company, this 3-phase marketing strategy, the way that they are promoting it to attract interest from sellers, and then the way that they are explaining it to seller, or maybe explaining it might be very debatable. But the way that they
presenting it,
pitching it, yeah,
For
to
sure.
sellers is really working. So people think in threes, small, medium, large. Having a three-phase marketing strategy is really smart. And, their three-phase marketing strategy is exclusive. And I'm not saying your three-phase marketing strategy is exactly like this. It's just really smart to have options.
Mm-hmm.
Exclusive, coming soon, and then obviously to the market and to the MLS. Now they got a wrench in their three-phase marketing strategy, because if they go true Compass exclusive and they go to the MLS on part number 3, they can't get to Zillow now, starting in May with the new Zillow standards. So, a little bit of a wrench there in the
Mm-hmm.
three-phase strategy. But the consumer said, based on the agent's suggestion. So this is where Compass agents will need to be very careful. And we're
Agreed.
going to get into like one thing that EXP came out with, the advisory form, and we'll compare that to a Compass form, which I don't think is going to protect their agents moving forward if they get more situations like this. So at the agent's suggestion, okay, as opposed to we decided to. This is what she wrote on LinkedIn. So I'm just kind of giving you this one consumer's perspective. At our agent's suggestion, we listed our home on Compass Private Exclusive, an off-market option that quietly shares your home with Compass connected buyers before it hits Zillow or the MLS.
Mm-hmm.
They agreed. Why not test the waters? 2 private showings later, somebody wanted to submit an offer, and it was at their magic number, right? Sellers always have a magic number in mind. It comes with maybe some limited education that they've done kind of DIY online, looking at other comps. But it doesn't come with day-to-day education of testing the market, of an open market test. And they're like, wow, if I could get that number, I'd be very happy. Well, the buyer at their magic number backs out. So the buyer had some
Mm-hmm.
doubts. The buyer's doubts was, is it really worth this much? They're saying that there's no comp. So even the seller's saying there was no comp. So I don't know. I don't get that, but there was no comps. And so the buyer started to feel nervous about it. They backed out. The buyer, it doesn't say this here, but could the buyer have also had doubts about the number that they were paying, because they're like, there was nobody competing with me because it wasn't on the open market? Like, how ironic is that?
Mm-hmm.
That a buyer could say, wow, there's no competition because I don't really know. I'm just I got this exclusive look, this behind the curtain look. Am I wrong? If other people were competing, now I know somebody else wants, the NFL draft was just last night. Like Shador Sanders, I would have drafted him for the Giants at 3. It turns out nobody wanted him in the first round. Okay, you have a true test when you hit the open market. You have a true test. Do other people want him? If I had this exclusive opportunity before the NFL draft and I'm the New York Giants, like, I would have taken him. It would have been a big mistake because clearly nobody else wanted him. You could have gotten him. You could get him in the second round tonight. So the buyers, like, there wasn't a true test. It's very ironic. They list it on the open market. They get $100,000 above this magic number. And the consumer writes, long live the free market. This is what James Dwiggins, this is what EXP, this is what Zillow,
Mm-hmm.
this is what these industry leaders have been fighting for. Interestingly enough, NAR says they fight for it, but you don't see them putting any gloves on. You just see them. They're not even sitting in the corner, like rooting on a James Dwiggin or an EXP or a Zillow. They're not even in the stadium on this debate anymore. They've put themselves completely out of the picture, and it's just left to like Compass and Homes.com, kind of just this battle of who's going to be the next leader in real estate and how are they going to win. Now, there's a comment from a Compass executive, not Robert Reffkin, but this is an advisor from Compass and a founder of a team. So not a company executive per se, but Christine Mariana,
Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
who commented. So you had inside of LinkedIn, like you said, Notorious ROB, you've got James Dwiggins, you've got all of these comments. And then you've got a Compass comment saying, it sounds like the 3-phase marketing. This is to the consumer. It sounds like the 3-phase marketing plan worked as it was meant to have worked. Phase 1, the private exclusive phase, is not meant to sell the property in-house. It's an opportunity to prep the home pre-market to other agents, test price without any price changes happening publicly. Phase 2, coming soon, get the listing on the MLS. Phase 3, go public with your best foot forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the flaw in that argument from this team leader from Compass is like, yeah, phase 1 almost cost the consumer $100,000. So phase 1, it's saying, the private exclusive is not meant to sell the property, but it almost did sell the property if the buyer didn't back out. If the buyer stayed in, the seller was going to stay in the deal, not make that $100,000.
So the seller in the comments said, hey, if the buyer didn't have backed out, we would have accepted and moved ahead. And they're trying to pitch it like we weren't going to sell it. But the seller's saying, no, that's not what would have happened here. And I wouldn't describe it exactly how you outlined it. If that buyer hadn't gotten cold feet, I think there was a very good chance we would have accepted that original offer and missed out on $100,000.
Yeah,
that's coming from the consumer. That's not anybody else.
And listen, I don't know how the Compass agent who was working with this consumer feels about another Compass agent jumping in on the LinkedIn post. I mean, this is a public forum. But like to say, I mean, to kick it off, I'm sure Christine Mariana is a very accomplished. I don't know her. I don't think this was a very well defended comment of the 3-phase marketing plan, because phase 1 almost blew up in this seller's face. And it sounds like the 3-phase marketing plan worked as it was meant to have worked. No, it sounds like it was almost an epic disaster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where can this 3-phase marketing plan actually work? And listen, I think some people would disagree with me on this for sure. But where can it actually work? I'm going to bring up, and if Haley can bring up on the screen, the EXP form. Okay. This EXP form, we talked about it actually a little bit at BAMFest when I had the conversation with Veronica Figueroa. It's a seller advisory form. It's a risks of limited marketed exposure. It's 1 page. It's very bold.
Yes.
EXP's done a great job open sourcing this type of the forms that they're doing to the entire market. So they go through 4, issues with basically doing a Compass exclusive. They don't use Compass's name they
use everything but Compass's name in here. And I like this form, Byron. I don't know what you think. I mean, I think it's very clear. It's concise. It talks about limited buyer exposure. It says a large pool of qualified buyers may never learn that your property is listed for sale because it wasn't given full market exposure. That's a very fair comment. With reduced market exposure comes reduced visibility, and with reduced visibility comes reduced demand. Financial risk. Limited market exposure may and likely will result in reduced competition for your property. Reduced competition means you lessen your chances of receiving the highest sale price and best terms. Longer time on market. This is documented by Bright, by the way. Bright did a survey that 90% of these homes come to market anyway that are private exclusive, and it usually takes a couple weeks, anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks longer for these properties to sell. Timing's valuable to a lot of sellers. That's one of their top concerns. In many markets, residential properties listed with limited market exposure tend to stay on the market longer than those given full market exposure. This may adversely impact or otherwise frustrate plans to sell your property for the highest price and best terms within the shortest period of time. No public portals. Withholding your property listing from public portals such as Zillow, Realtor.com, Redfin, and Homes.com may reduce its visibility, limit the pool of potential buyers, and negatively affect your chances of achieving optimal sales terms and net proceeds.
Yeah. Well, so listen, I've got actually not a lot of issues with Compass making a decision for their business to say this is our model. But so Compass doesn't have anybody sign this form. And I do think that this form is important for sellers who pick phase 1. It's like if you were to say to a buyer, and I think most agents across the country use something like this, I know we do. hey, if you want to win, you're probably going to have to drop inspections. I'm not advising you to do it. In fact, you're going to have to sign this form that says I
Yep,
advised you to do an inspection. There's a liability thing here.
for sure.
And like, had this this consumer who made the LinkedIn post signed off on this form before deciding phase one of Compass going Compass exclusive, it would have been completely on them. Had they like found out in the end, oh, I could have gotten $100,000 more and I didn't, and whatever, the decision would have been fully on them,
Mm-hmm.
because these are the risks of accepting a deal within phase one of Compass's 3-phase. These are risks. You haven't exposed the property to the largest pool, and you there's really no debate for that. Again, I have no problem with Compass building this business model. It's probably something that me and James are going to debate when we're on the stage at the gathering. Housing Wires, we're on a
Oh, look at you, big
we're on a,
shot.
we're on a panel together, Tom, and I've got some some thoughts that I think are going to be an interesting conversation. We're going to have James on this pod at some point here too, by the way. But I don't have a problem with them having this business model that frustrates everybody.
Not at all.
NAR certainly isn't going to be any type of a watchdog on this conversation. So it's kind of left between the James Twiggins and the EXPs and the Zillows and the Redfins and Homes.com and Andy Florence to kind of all battle this out, it seems like. But without disclosing it. Now, there is a form that Compass is using. So
Yeah, can I compare these forms?
Yeah,
for
compare the
everybody?
forms, please.
So EXPs, I would look at as a disclosure. And to Byron's point, I agree. You have that disclosure signed, and the seller can do whatever they want, and it's been explained properly. What you said earlier, Compass agents need to be very careful how they're explaining this or presenting it or pitching it, might be better words. This
Pitching.
form sounds like a pitch, okay? So
It is.
It says the 3-phase marketing strategy goes over testing aspirational pricing, validating pricing strategy, and they have please select the options below. 1, I authorize Compass to list my property as a Compass private exclusive. I understand that by listing the property as Compass private exclusive, the property will not be publicly advertised through the MLS, but will be available to Compass agents who can share the listing directly with their clients.
Pause right there. So I understand that it won't be advertised through the MLS, but we know, Tom, initials happen after a face-to-face pitch.
Yep.
And so this doesn't in bold. I mean, when you, and I hope Haley's got it on for those that are on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, jump over to YouTube. I think actually the video's on Spotify, but if you're on Apple, certainly jump over to YouTube so you can see this, the side-by-side form. Like EXP is so clear about the risks of making this decision, bigger font, in your face. You can't miss it if you're signing the form. Here, you're just like, yeah, it won't be on the MLS, but my agent just told me and pitched me that is going to be a huge advantage to me, potentially. Because what's going on in the conversations is what it's all about. And so this is a marketplace. Go on. You could continue with.
So I think that's a great point, right? If you look at EXP's form, it's a disclosure, right? Like that looks like something like a lead-based paint disclosure. I don't know if you have those in Connecticut, Byron. We got them here.
Yeah.
Very clear. Like here's the risks. Like
all the homes were built when Pilgrims were alive in Connecticut. So we have
we've got a mix. We got a mix. Anyway. B, I authorize Compass to list my property as Compass coming soon. I understand that by listing the property as Compass coming soon, the property may not be available through the MLS during that period, but will be available to anyone on Compass.com. I understand that pursuant to local MLS rules, Compass can publicly market the property, including through digital ads and newsletters in this phase. And then there's a bottom part that needs another initial. I understand that I can instruct Compass to submit my property to the MLS at any time I wish. By not listing my property on the MLS, it is not distributed to other brokerage firms, public sites, which could reduce the number of potential buyers who can learn about the property during an off MLS phase of the marketing period.
You see how this part here that is like, I understand it could reduce the.
It doesn't talk about price. It doesn't talk about terms.
It's in italics.
Yeah,
and it's like
bold.
It's not like the leading message of, like you said, a disclosure. It's kind of like it's kind of like a side note in italics almost. It's very, it's
It's like
creative
a
how they
government
do it.
bill where they bury it in the what they're actually trying to pass on page 370. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my interpretation here. And then C, I
We'll get
authorize
beat up in the
Compass.
comments for saying this by some Compass agents, but if you looked, we're not a Compass agent, obviously neither of us, we're not EXP agents. We're not,
Nope.
so I think if you look at this objectively, the form needs work is at least a fair statement.
I agree. I mean, people, unfortunately, in this business, I didn't know what I was signing comes up a lot, and that's on the agent. That's solely on the agent not to explain things and go through paperwork.
And
And in the era of electronic signatures, it happens a lot. Some of the agents can't even explain the forms.
listen,
So
like Compass has across the board, Compass has very experienced agents, really, top performers in
no doubt.
in a lot of different markets on Compass. There's really smart agents. So a lot of experience too. I know it's a newer company compared to, some of the legacy companies, obviously, but they've done a great job recruiting and acquiring, a lot of experience within Compass. So there's no question most Compass agents are going to know how to explain the risk that is associated with this. But this form, what you're actually signing, I don't think goes far enough on explaining. And if you were more of an inexperienced agent and you were just downloading the form from, from the brokerage portal or whatever,
Mhm.
and going to a consumer's house and you're just basing it off of this form, it certainly doesn't go far enough. And I think I'd love an attorney opinion on this.
That's what I was good. They'd have a field day with this thing, Byron.
I
I mean,
think so.
it would. And they probably talked to legal. I would imagine they did. That's a bad
Yeah, they
move
did.
if they didn't. But
Well, listen, Robert Reffkin right now, he's putting them out there. He's putting the balls on the field, so to speak. Like he's got some big ones right now because he's been very buttoned up for a long time, building this company. And right now, I think he's taken a page out of Andy Florence's playbook, the CEO of Homes.com, CEO of CoStar, obviously. And he's being aggressive. You follow him on Instagram. He's one of the best follows of 2025. I mean, he's posting violations, going after local boards, going after NAR, going after MLSs. Like he's putting it out there on the field. I mean, he's to me, he's almost welcoming potential litigation. You got to respect his game right now for what he believes in, whether you agree or disagree with it. He's going after it. Agents, past clients don't exist. Unless, of course, you're retiring in 2025, then consider your clients in the past. But if you're building a business for the future, your clients are your clients. This is where Mosaic comes in, the client experience operating platform for you to manage the client experience. See, cupcakes are cute. It's a nice thing to do, but it won't keep a client tied to you for life. It's not going to bring the value to their home living, home ownership experience for years to come. CRMs work for lead generation, lead capture, and lead communication, while Mosaic helps you transform how you manage those relationships moving forward with the value that they actually need in their home ownership lifespan. So don't wait, check out mosaic.io or find the link down below.
Well, let's call it what it is. He works for Compass, right? This is good for Compass. I think that's very clear. And when you look at this form, and we don't need to go through the whole thing, we'll put it up. One is a marketing pitch and one is a disclosure. I think that's the easiest way to differentiate the two.
Generally agree with that, yeah.
And as someone on a listing agent, what I get worried about is I didn't know about this, and that's always the biggest. Or I didn't realize this, and you could say you signed the form, but if people aren't explaining this properly, it's a big challenge. And
you have a local story.
I do, yeah. So this happened. We lost the listing for this, by the way. So this is what went on. So when this story broke a couple weeks ago, we interviewed with an expired listing. Home came off the market. All the seller told us was, marketing's important. Exposure's important. We feel like we didn't get the right exposure with our last agent. And it was the classic open houses were fumbled together at the last minute, iPhone photos on the property. That's something I've helped a lot of people with. I've done this hundreds of times. And we lost the listing to a Compass agent. And this story broke right as we were in the interview process. It was a couple weeks ago. And I sent him the story and I said, hey, I know you're talking to someone from Compass. And based on the fact that you said
you're talking about the Zillow standard story.
Yeah, the Zillow standard story.
Yeah.
Because all these people talked about was marketing. So that was their concern. It looked like it was priced appropriately. It wasn't a pricing issue. Home showed well. It was the marketing. I'm very clear on that. It's 25 years of doing this. So I sent them the story and I said, hey, I based on the fact that you said marketing was really important, I just want you to know about this. If you're not going to hire us, that's great. I want to make sure you're clear that a private exclusive, because they told me they were doing that, could get you not to appear on Zillow. And
by the way, there's nothing wrong with sharing that story. This is a competitive environment. Compass is being competitive. You doing that. That's good information.
I would have done it 10 out of 10 times. I mean, that's, and hey, I'm really, honestly, I'm just trying to help the seller. If they don't hire me, great, but they know their options. That's all it is. So the seller calls me and hey, thank you for sending that. We already signed with the Compass agent, but if I would have known this, we would have hired you. Like very verbatim. I've got the follow-up boss like messages in there. And that's, to me, is an example of where this was pitched to a seller as an advantage instead of here's the pluses and minuses and here's your options. And that's what a good salesperson does. You do something for somebody, not for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're staying in that contract though.
They are. I mean, I think they actually, from what I understand, I backed off once they told me they signed. I don't want to interfere with an agreement.
I understand that.
And from what I understand is they're going to skip the private exclusive process and go right to coming soon so they don't miss out on Zillow. Because
what's your thoughts on coming soon?
I like a coming soon launch. I think that's an effective way to do it. Our MLS with Bright, we have to be in Bright as coming soon, and we can be on all the other websites.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that you want to let people know in advance of the home coming to the market. One of the worst things a listing agent can do is it's Tuesday afternoon at 3, the home pops up on the market, right? There's no advance warning. You look at buyers' schedules today. I mean, you got kids, Byron. I got kids. Like, it is sweep season right now for activities. It's very hard getting out to even look at properties. So the more advance notice that you can give with a clear, calculated launch, it's going to be better for the seller anyway.
And they talk about the I think one of Compass's arguments is that the Compass exclusive allows you to test price. If you do a 7 to 14 day coming soon approach, you can test price too. I mean, if nobody reaches out and asks for more information, that's an indicator that you're not going to have much activity. So I think coming soon does a lot to test the property in and of itself. Redfin actually had a great request, or they have an idea, I guess, for lack of better words, where they want the MLSs to create a feature where the coming soon would not actually rack up days on market on the portals. And I like it because right now, coming soon on the portals, maybe not inside your MLS, but nobody looks at DOM on the MLS except for agents. But when it goes to Zillow, you can see that it was been on Zillow for 7 days, even though all 6 of the 7 of them were coming soon. So I think Redfin has a good, Redfin obviously is in line with Zillow on saying, hey, if you do a Compass exclusive, as an example, you're not coming onto our portal. I do like some of this in-between stuff, like have a great, advisory risk, a disclosure, like what Leo and EXP created.
Very smart by them. Love that form.
Yeah. I like what Redfin is saying. I don't love a lot of what Redfin says, but this is a good one.
Your biggest loser of the year. So this is high praise coming from Byron.
This is, don't put days on market on the portals for those that do a coming soon through the MLS. This coming soon test the market appropriately. So, hey, I said something to Zoodealio, the CEO Kayla and Elliot from the team at Zoodealio. I said, hey, you guys are in a position right now to really, and BAMX members actually get Zoodealio platform including your BAMX membership. It's like a $2,400 savings off of what you would pay to Zoodealio direct. But Zoodealio generates these offers for, from investors for property. So I said, hey, the 3 phases to me, coming soon test price. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you could have phase 1 investor offers at the listing appointment. Hey, here's the 4 offers that investors would make. These are real offers. You could accept them. That to me sets the market value floor. And so now I could go into my coming soon knowing what my floor is. Those offers can stay in my back pocket the entire time. To me, that's a better 3-phase marketing plan of actually having real offers, marketing, not marketing, market value floor, phase 1, coming soon, and then go to public. That to me makes a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like Compass exclusive, showing it to just a few people. How about a few investors that are going to give you 4 offers every single time right off the bat, where it's like, okay, I can actually go into coming soon and go public, having offers in the back pocket, knowing what my floor is. Like going back to the NFL draft, Shedeur Sanders doesn't know what his floor is. Is it going to be the second round? Is it going to be the third round? Giants are off the.
He's gonna get drafted in the second round. I would, reminds me of this guy. I don't know if you heard of him. His name's Jalen Hurts, where he was a winner in college, fell down into the second round, and ended. Maybe that could be good for the Giants. If
hey, good thing
they got Jackson Dart.
Good thing we're mixing in sports talk without Lisa being on the pod. She couldn't keep up with the sports talk mixing.
She thinks that Tom Brady's still on the Patriots, so it's we're dealing with that. Mike Del Prete talked about this. I don't know if you saw this, Byron. So he actually did a breakdown on this a couple weeks ago about the business case for exclusive inventory, and he showed some of the billboards. You talked about Robert Reffkin having a big balls, I think is what you said, and putting them on the field. And they have these billboards out there. See 25% of homes for sale 1 week before any other site. And he basically broke it down and said, hey, this benefits Compass. It's a recruiting play for them, and they're trying to bring more agents in to get access there and bring in more clients. I mean, he called, and Mike Del Prete's pretty down the middle. So it's clear what the strategy is here. We said this all along. It's about options for consumers and the proper education. Like aim to educate, don't aim to close, and just make sure there's disclosures there.
Compass's end game here is to be recognized by the public as a place to search homes. Mm-hmm. They are doing the revert. They started as, when they first kind of started, I said, hey, they're Sotheby's 2.0, or they want to be Sotheby's 2.0 is kind of like how they initially launched the brand, higher end. Agents love the brand. There's a lot to love, and all of that kind of stuff. But really just nothing more to me in the beginning. They were trying to claim they were a tech company. I didn't really buy into that. It was more just, like I said, Sotheby's 2.0. They're doing their reverse engineering, or this is their long-term goal, in my opinion. They're trying to reverse engineer from traditional brokerage. Maybe the first traditional brokerage should try to do this, to become an actual portal that people search for homes. While a Zillow, you could argue, and a Redfin is reverse engineering from portal into brokerage activities for sure. So they're doing it the opposite direction. They want to be one of those 3, 4, 5 portals that, and no other brokerage really has this, where they get actual traffic. That's the end game here for them.
Well said. So I think that, the value here for the knowledge brokers listening is that no matter what company you're working for, whether you're with Compass, not with Compass, you got to know how to present at the listing appointment. Like, I think that is so critical. I mean, I'm giving you the case study that I ran into. I knew how to combat that, right? You've got to know what you're walking into. You've got to know, here's maybe my competition. Byron, I know you were a dominant listing agent for a very long time. And pre-qualification before the appointment is one of the critical steps to success. So you know what you're walking into and can play offense and win the business, because that's really what we're talking about here.
There's a business model opportunity here, and you can, like I love how Compass brands 3-phase marketing. You can do the same. Step 1, investors. I mentioned Zoodealio. Zoodealio partners with agents. They're not like Open Door where they want to exterminate agents. They're a reputable company. Number two, doing the coming soon. Number three, going public. Like, there's a business model here. You go into a listing appointment and you have options to increase exposure, not subtract exposure. Like, I talk a lot about what Zillow Listing Showcase is doing. That undoubtedly increases exposure on the biggest portal. Like, you want to have all of these features and functions that increase eyeballs when you're sitting in front of a seller, and having a framework and approach to do it. And so there's with all of this going on, like, you educated a consumer on some of the, advise them on some of the risks. Now they're obviously not going to go with that exclusive model. There's all these business models that can compete with each other. And I think that's a real opportunity for everybody. What else do we got, Tom, before we get to the Hormozi stuff?
Yes. So we also saw some movement in the market here. The existing home sales receded 5.9% in the month of March. That was to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.02 million. That's a slower pace of 2.4% from a year ago. And the median existing sales price climbed 2.7% from March 2024 to over 400,000. These are national numbers coming from NAR. And I think it's explaining we're still in this grinded out market, right? Where there's, we're seeing prices are up, sales are coming down. We're seeing the same thing locally. If you look at just the Bright MLS data week over week, new purchase contracts were down 3.7% for the same week last year, and 4.2% from just the previous week. And that was on Monday. So we've got that happening. We also have Zillow has come out, and Zillow's one of many people that make these projections, but they turned into a housing bear, and they are now predicting U.S. home prices will fall 1.7% between March 2025 and March 2026. Now, there's other people not predicting this. They're still predicting prices are going to go up. These are national numbers here. I think there's the realization that this market, while it's moving, it's a very much grinded out, maintain inventory, pre-pandemic type of market. What are you seeing on the ground, Byron, with you and your team and everyone else you're talking to?
Well, before I get onto the ground, I'll just give you a little macro look at this.
Give us the macro.
And then, so 4 months of inventory now on existing home sales versus 3.2 months a year ago. Builders are double that. They're up slightly over 8 months of inventory. And the building all happens in 7 states. Well, not all of it, but over 50% of building permits happen in 7 states. Okay, so when we're looking at this inventory, which is, to your point, Zillow now predicting prices going down. This inventory increase is the thing that's putting pressure on prices going down. So it's going to end up being, a localized situation. Texas, Florida, California, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and South Carolina. That's where the building happens. It's those 7 states. So when you have more sellers than you do buyers, you have downward pressure on price. That's going to drive a lot of these, this prediction from Zillow, not all 7 of those states, but when Zillow says, hey, national home prices are going to down 1.7%, it's the increase in inventory. Well, the increase in inventory is being driven from new construction. They're up over 8 months of supply versus 4 months on existing. Now, existing is creeping up, but when you get up over 6 months of supply, like new home construction has, prices go down. Prices on new construction are down from about 430,000 a year ago to just over 400,000. So new construction and existing home sales are at about the same. They're at just slightly over 400,000 right now, which is interesting. Why would new homes and existings be almost the same? Well, existing home sales tend to have, a much more desirable location. Location is important when you're factoring this stuff in. So if existing home sales gets to 6 months, which is a more neutral market between buyers and sellers, or certainly up to 8 months where new homes are, you're going to see downward pressure, and Zillow's going to end up being right with that forward-looking projection. Going to the micro, like what I'm seeing with my team, markets like Connecticut have no chance of moving down, and Zillow's actually saying Connecticut moves up on price. Why? Because there's no inventory. That the supply demand pressure is what's going to impact price right now. And so Connecticut's got 4,000 homes, roughly, single family homes available for 3.65 million population. If you look at Port Charlotte, Florida, you got 5,500 homes available for 230,000 population. Like, it's so outbalanced. The Northeast states, for example, just got an affordability score from realtor.com, affordability and home building score of an F. Everybody got an F. Connecticut, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, they all got an F. Okay. Texas was number 3 because they build. South Carolina was number 1. They build. And so without getting inventory, in some markets, price is going to continue to be a major issue, and you'll get downward pressure. 1.7%, by the way, after 40+% gains to start the first 5 years of this decade is kind of a flat move. So,
yeah, there's Lance Lambert does a great job with this. I'm going to send the chart to Haley to put up that he takes these blue and red. It's very visual. I love that. And the darker the blue, the higher the prices have gone up year over year. The darker the red, the same thing. So if you look at just the Midwest and the Northeast, they're all blue for the most part. And then you see like a couple like beiges, like that, like peach color that my mom decorated our house with in the 80s. That's like the Sun Belt and the West Coast. And then Florida, Punta Gorda, like dark red, like Philly's like
that's throwback
right maroon red. Yeah. Cape Coral, same thing. You're seeing Austin is more like a pink color. So this really explains it. And this is where you got to know your local numbers, Byron, because we're getting objections right now. Like, hey, I'm nervous about the economy. I'm nervous about these tariffs. What's it going to do? The first question I ask people is, hey, totally get that. It's a little uncertain. Tell me exactly what you're nervous about. And then you hear what they're concerned about. And then you have your local data to show them, let me show you what's actually going on here. And you can validate that pretty easily.
Tom, every listing appointment you go into, you should do this. You should pull how many single family homes in that town, in that zip code, whatever you go by, are active on the market at that moment.
Yep.
And then you should pull for that month. Okay. So we're in April, pull April homes available on the market in that zip code when you're going into a listing appointment versus April of 2019. 2019 was the last what you would consider normal, near neutral market in almost every zip across the country. And, so if you're going into a listing appointment right now in, like you mentioned, Punta Gorda or Cape Coral, your number today is actually going to be higher than April of 2019. So going into a listing appointment with a seller, you can say, look we have double the amount of homes. And I'm just throwing double out there, as a
get the right number. Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
But I'm pretty close. Get the right number. Hey, we're double. We've got 150 homes in this zip code versus only 75 in 2019. Okay. And here are the reasons why we have less buyers. Compare the rate versus saying, oh, the national headlines saying home prices continue to go up are wrong because we don't have demand in this market. That's just ChatGPT talk. That's realtor talk.
Yeah.
Take the number today, this month versus that month in 2019. Because we just did it with the team and like talking about what the team's talking about, Tom, we were looking at some towns like these are small little Connecticut towns on the shore. But 2019, April, 75 single family homes on the market. April 2025, 12.
Ooh.
Like you're working with a buyer and they're like, we're going to wait for prices come down. Like, hey, you had 75 options in 2019. You have 12. You have more buyers competing on 12 homes than you did 70. You could come in at asking price in 2019 or under. And if it didn't work out, you move on to one of the other 75 options.
Yep.
When you've got 12 options and 3 of them are dogs and everybody's competing on the 9 good ones, and maybe 4 of those 9 aren't even in your price, you've got 5 real options. You don't have the luxury of doing that. And so those numbers help consumers get outside of realtor ChatGPT talk and understand, wow, the gap is significant.
For sure. I mean, this is how you educate consumers. And we said earlier, when you aim to educate and not to close, good things happen. So present the data, give people options, Byron, you said think in threes. That's some of the best advice out there is like, hey, we can do this, we can do this, and we can do this.
Small,
Which
medium,
one's
large.
best for you? Yeah.
If Starbucks had one option size, people would actually. I think they'd go there less. What happens? You stand at Starbucks in line and you listen to people order. Everybody's going medium, medium, medium. Okay,
They
and
say
so
grande and venti, man. I don't know what or venti, whatever it is. You
whatever.
know,
But everybody's picking the middle option of
all
everything, and it just kind of it anchors people down to making an easy choice. They can make faster decisions, and so same thing there. All right. Do
tell
you
me
got
about Hormozi. Yeah, I want to hear about this.
so I asked Haley to pull this clip. He actually did an encore, which was kind of cool because it was
oh, man.
BAMFest.
That guy's
And
ripped, by the way. I mean, did you tell him to wear a tank top to show off his guns? Was that kind of the game plan? I mean,
that's his.
it's incredible. He wears
That's
the
his
Days
uniform.
Old Breeze strip. Remember, everyone wore those in the NFL back in like the 90s. Like it's amazing.
I've got the black button down as I guess my uniform of choice. He goes with the tank top.
I'm a shirt and tie guy. I mean,
So myself and Eric, the broker agent, and Sharran were kind of breaking down this incredible fireside chat that Sharran and Alex had. And I was like, man, there was one thing I almost wish you asked, Sharran. I'd love to get your feedback on it. Here's the question I would have asked. And then without the Stone Cold Steve Austin music, back on the virtual stage comes Hormozi doing an encore. And my question was about, listen, Tom, where a lot of the conversation in our industry is about, and it's the right conversation, building a brand, getting more attention. BAMX helps agents with that more than any other platform right now. How to get attention on YouTube and own the attention. All of this stuff's an important conversation. It also happens to be the sexy conversation. The conversation me, you, and Lisa have all the time. It's the conversation we'll be having, when we do the workshop up in Boston in Lisa's HQ. Sometimes is the unsexy conversation. Sometimes what we talk about on this pod is unsexy. It's like converting the sale. It's the call. It's how fast you've got to be to that lead. Speed to lead, right? That's a cliche kind of phrase, but it's still important.
It's accurate.
Inside sales, how to follow up, all of these things. It's kind of like the harder work, or maybe not the harder work, but that may be unfair.
Mundane work that people don't want to master and they want to do the sexy stuff.
Yeah, it's the unsexy. And so I ask Alex, because I know he's a sales guy. He has inside sales departments in his company and companies. And so I ask him about this on the encore, about how fast agents need to be in response time. And if Haley could bring up the clip, let's listen to what he says.
So some of you guys may have heard the statistic that's 391% increase in sales if you can contact a lead within 60 seconds. And so the question that I always ask a business owner that doesn't do this is, what are you currently dedicating resources towards that is going to quadruple your business that's going to do that? And the answer is there's almost nothing. It's like, well, then what's the actual cost of doing that? Because there's like, what's the implementation cost? It means you might have to staff somebody in order to just deal with fast leads. Like, that's it. It means that you stop everything. Okay, well, what's the cost of that? Okay, well, the cost of that might be $60,000 a year. Okay, fine. So for $60,000 a year, we now go from we respond to our leads when we get to them to we respond to them within 60 seconds. So what's our return on that 60 grand? Well, provided we make more than $60,000 a year, then it's going to be way higher than that. And so that's really the simple math. I talked to a guy who did he did like drywall stuff. I don't remember. It was some sort of home services. And he was closing 55% of his leads, not scheduled appointments, not shows. He was closing 55% of his leads. And I was like, what on earth are you doing? And he said, oh, I listened to what you said, and we call all of our leads within 60 seconds. I was like, oh, well, shoot, how much lead volume are you getting? And he said, I get like 2 or 3 leads a day. And I was like, okay, how did you operationalize that? He said, oh, I pay my aunt $60,000 a year, and she has no responsibilities in my company besides stopping whatever she's doing the moment a lead comes in and calls. And so that means that and she gets paid that $60,000 to basically have 2 to 3 conversations per day, but it's just, I can't tell her when they're going to happen. That's the only, and that's the rule.
There's a whole
That
bunch.
is incredible.
We extend that whole conversation. I won't play the whole thing here. Obviously, members of BAMX can jump in and listen to that entire replay. It's in school BAMX. There's a link down below if you're not a member. Anyways, so
I love that.
This is the thing that, listen, if you're going to create a brand online, which you should be doing, I'm definitely not saying you shouldn't be doing.
We've both done that. I mean, it would be hypocritical to say don't do that. I totally agree with you.
Or if you're going to do a direct mail campaign,
Mm-hmm.
think about how expensive direct mail is, or online leads, or whatever you're going to do. You're going to generate leads in any fashion and not respond or pick up instantly. Direct mail leads are extremely expensive because the conversion on direct mail is very low. It's the passive, easy thing to do in marketing. It makes agents feel like they're doing something by sending out mailers, but to not respond to that phone call immediately. People's attention spans are short. They have motivation in the moment. We talk about that, later on. That motivation can last for only that moment. When they take action, they can become disinterested in you. Right? I mean, most people hire the first agent they talk to or they
71%. Yeah.
And so if you're going to do any type of marketing campaign or build a brand or what have you, and not solve for the phones, every piece of mail, every email, everything is designed to get a phone call conversation, and every phone call conversation is designed to have an appointment set up. Every phone call is only to set an appointment. Okay. And marketing is only set up to set up a phone appointment. So those are the kind of the three steps there. And so, I mean, just look at the increase in sales, 391%. What I hear some agents say is, well, if I'm at a showing with a buyer, I don't want to pick up that call because I should be in front of them. No, they should know that you're finding every single opportunity available to them in the market. And by not picking up that call, you might not be finding that opportunity for them, or not working on a team where there's an ISA that can pick up that call instantly. That call needs to be picked up. If I call any business service and they don't pick up, I'll never use them. I'll just never use them because it's not a relevant experience in today's market. Well, they should wait for me. If they looked me up online, they should know that I'm the best. No, your LinkedIn and your IG profile doesn't tell them that they're best. You're the best. Service, picking up 100% of the calls 100% of the time, tells them, or responding within the first 60 seconds, tells them that you have a process to run your business.
I could not agree with this more. And if you're one of those people that says you want to focus on the appointment, you got to hire somebody. You got to invest in the business. I mean, think about the money you're losing, right? This happened to our team. We do a lot of Google advertising, Google local service ads, all that stuff. Woman calls in, 95-year-old father selling his home. He moved in with her. She said to me on the phone, this is 2 weeks ago, hey, I called somebody else. They didn't pick up, so I called you, and you picked up on the second ring. Thanks for coming out. Let's book an appointment. And she didn't even leave a message for this person. And this is real life. And these calls got to get picked up. Availability is the best ability for a lot of agents, at least in terms of communication. And the folks that think you can wait like hours to call these leads, well, people are impatient. They've got a very small attention span. And it's so spot on. You're talking about a drywall company doing this. Well, I guarantee you these calls are as lucrative as a drywall job. Why aren't you doing that in your business?
Tom, you know what the consumer does when you don't pick up or call back in the next 60 seconds?
He's too busy, Byron. He's too busy to talk to me.
They got your number online. You know what they do? They find another number to call. And that's why, I called them back in a half hour. That lead isn't interested because they didn't pick up. I responded back in a half hour. Well, you know what they did right after you didn't pick up? They called another number and they got a hold of somebody. Maybe they called 2 or 3. And whoever was able to quench their thirst, their motivation in the moment that they were motivated, got the appointment. The reason you didn't get them to pick up in a half hour when you called them back is because they've already spoken to somebody, because they were motivated in the moment. They were motivated to speak on their time. And that's why you didn't get the call back or the answer there.
This is such a clear thing that agents want to avoid. And you talked about it. It's not the sexy thing. It's the stuff that gets appointments. I mean, and you look at the data. The data tells us this, that so many sellers, they hire the first agent they meet with. I mean, I think it's north of 70%. It might have been 81% with the new data that came out. So just being first and not screwing it up can go a long way in this business. But that's why you got to practice your scripts. You got to practice your role play and understand, like, going to lunch for an hour during the middle of the day as a real estate agent may not be the most productive thing for you.
You have to be obsessed with being first. You have to be obsessed with being available or hiring the infrastructure around your business to be able to pick up calls instantly within 60 seconds, respond to inbound within 60 seconds. I get it. You know, it's going to be, if you're thinking right now, well, geez, I'm building my business. I'm a solo agent. I can't, you know, if you get an inbound lead at a listing appointment and it's, you know, it's a buyer lead, I would do the Sharran Srivatsaa model of saying, I'm going to take that. This is a buyer call. I'm going to show you how I work buyers right now. You're going to get to see it behind the scenes. And for a minute, I do it right in front of my prospective sellers. Hey, I'm actually sitting in a property that might be, you know, something you're interested in. I can send you a couple of details in our coming soon. You know, we're going to be coming soon to the market. I can send you a couple of details, see if there's something you're interested in. The sellers at least see that you're somebody who's working for them. And they're going to want you to pick up leads and calls that are coming in when their property is listed. So you can, if you're just building your business, my point, and you don't have that infrastructure built out yet, you're not at that step that Hormozi was talking about, hiring somebody or being on a team that has that infrastructure, whatever. Well, you can turn the conversation to be a highlight of the services you're going to do, not a rude thing.
For sure.
Stepping away from the call or for the call.
You ever see Eastbound and Down, Byron? Kenny Powers? Great. If you're not first, you're last, kids. That's what he says to the kids in the gym class. So there you go. Great way to end the pod. I got to go. You got anything else, Byron?
Nothing. I think Lisa will be back. We missed her this week. She'll be back, and we'll all be together in Boston. If you're interested in that, the workshop links below. So love to see you there. Thanks, Tom. Great pod. Hopefully the Giants will do something this weekend that'll scare the Eagles off.
So Shedeur Sanders is predicted to go number 1 in the second round to, unfortunately for him, the Cleveland Browns. That's a crap landing spot. I feel for him.
Yeah, that's not
New York. I mean, they had it. I mean, the Saints. I could see the Saints making a move. That's the other prediction here.
Yeah. Well, they'd have to trade with the Browns.
If you're not first, you're last. See you later.
See you guys.